Welcome to Judaism Demystified, a podcast for the perplexed. Join us as we explore some of the most fascinating Jewish and Torah-related topics with our esteemed guests. By tackling some of the biggest questions you likely won't find addressed elsewhere, we aim to shed light on important issues and inspire a return to the fundamentals. Enjoy the show. Thank you for joining the Judaism Demystified podcast. We are joined by Dr. Ruth Calderon, the legend. We are so excited. This has been months in the making. And before we begin, we'd like to ask you to tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your background.
I want to say thank you for having me here. I was looking forward. So my name is Ruth Calderon. I'm in Tel Aviv, as you can see. Background. I grew up in the same apartment that I live in now. I studied in Tel Aviv. I belong to the general public, not to any religious community. In Israel, it's called secular, but not in the American meaning of it. And I was intrigued by Judaism and was looking for a place to study. And long story short, I found myself at the Talmud department of Hebrew University, where I did my PhD. I say sometimes that I was the only one in the room without a beard. And many things changed since then. And today I'm the president of Alma, which is a home for Hebrew culture in Tel Aviv. We do Jewish studies. We have a Bet Midrash that is just now beginning. It's not exactly students, the learners have come. And I'm part of the leadership team at the Mandel Institute in Jerusalem. And I have a grandchild and
Beautiful.
3 children. And together with all of us, I'm worried and sad and hoping that there will be peace soon and that everyone will come home.
Amen.
Amen.
We're all with you. This is a terrible time. Hopefully it's going to get better. So
I just
leading
want to
to
say the fact that that I know that you're with me and that we connect is a great source of comfort. We are too alone here. And every meeting like this, especially in studying Torah, is a real boost of optimism.
we feel the same way. You know, we have people, you guys are the front lines protecting us.
Yeah.
You know, we feel like we're in danger as well. There's so many.
The front line is moving
Yeah.
around the world. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to, now that you brought up your upbringing slightly, we'd like to get more into that. You thank your father and mother for instilling in you a love for Torah in the dedication page of your book, A Bride for One Night. Can you tell us about your background? Tell us about how your mother and father instilled that love of Torah in you.
It's a very good question, but I'm not sure I have such a precise answer. How do we, as parents, give our children any kind of, value or loyalty to something? I had parents from very different backgrounds. My mother is Ashkenazi. She came from Germany. She was brought up in Mannheim in Germany. Her parents came from Galicia. And my father is a Sephardic Jew, grew up in Bulgaria. His mother is from Turkey and his father from Bulgaria. So the house was very rich in Jewish cultures, different dishes, different takes on holidays. I was happy that both sides felt a bit like not inferior is the superior
Superior,
to the others, so nobody got hurt. The Bulgarians did not completely consider the Ashkenazis as Jews, and the Jews didn't consider anyone who's not from Germany as a member of culture. So for me, it was funny. I think my mother took it a little more, it was more challenging for her. And the thing I knew, although we were all not halachic, we were traditional Jews in a way that is not halachic at all. I knew that the most important thing about who we are is that we are Jewish. And there was a certain feeling of loyalty and pride. My father would say, you should know that you are the daughter of the king. Like, you wouldn't eat pork. You are the daughter of the king. That was the logic. And they never said this is not allowed to us or forbidden. And I felt that for both of them, being Jewish was a source of depth and
Identity.
Very deep identity. And also because my father spent 2 years in a work camp for the Germans in Bulgaria, and my mother was a little kid in Germany. They appreciated the good, not exactly good fortune, the gift of being able to live in a free Jewish state and feeling at home and raising us as, you know, what they kind of looked up to, tzabarim, that we feel safe and nobody hits us on the way back from school. And that we have a flag and that we have symbols. It was a very big deal for my father. Later, when I did my service at the Knesset, I thought that he would be overwhelmed with the signs of Israeli sovereignty of the menorah and olive leaves. So they did not, both of them were very learned people. My father was a scientist in agriculture. He was a specialist of storage of agricultural products in the UN and of course in Israel. And my mother, they spoke many languages. My mother read a lot in theater and literature and so forth, but they knew very little of Jewish text, I think. They knew the stories, kacha kacha. Once a friend of mine called his daughter Hagar. So my father said, how can you call a girl in the name of a prostitute? They said, Abba, she was not a prostitute. Hagar is the wife of Abraham. So my dad said, in the Bulgarian Bible, she was a prostitute. So he did not get any Jewish, like serious Jewish education. But we knew that is the most important thing for him. We did Kiddush. We couldn't go out before we come home and do Kiddush. I told you the reason to never eat pork, at least in public, you would say. So it was not halachic, but it was very, this is who we are.
Yes,
and,
yes.
And I, without speaking about it too much, I inherited both of them. And at a very early age, I became very sakranit, curious. What is it exactly that they have and we don't have? We got a lot of Israeli education and we knew the names of the birds and the flowers, and we took trips all over the country, and, you know, we did all the connecting to Yediat Haaretz, knowing the land in an intimate way, but I felt they have something that is more grounded, that is more with more gravitas, and I wanted to learn. And so they, although finally when I would come back from school, from the university, and my father would ask me, so what, Caleb, Mishnah is Talmud or Talmud is Gemara? Or he never got that exactly right. Or maybe he was joking, but I knew that I'm making them happy, although they were a little afraid that I will go too far and away from them. But I'm here in the middle.
That's very beautiful.
Yeah, and you're describing basically a Sephardic household.
I was thinking about that also.
Yeah,
באמת, היינו חושבים על זה. I was thinking about that.
Yeah, and only when you meet Ashkenazi religious Jews did I ever hear that I am secular. My dad would never say secular about himself. He's a Jew. He's a traditional
We don't
Jew.
have that
It
concept.
hurts us when these labels get thrown. זה באמת
Right.
כואב לנו. Like it's really
נכון.
something that is
Yeah.
it's not something as Faradim that we resonate with. We just don't. It's a shame.
I think we've spoken about this before, but it comes from like a denominational influence from Christianity in that's what we believe at least, where like everything has a category, right? And the famous joke that when two Ashkenazis get into an argument, they open three shuls, like
The one
so
they don't go to.
yeah, we the one they don't go to exactly. So we just don't have that. We don't relate to that at all. So
And I enjoy being with Jews that are not like me.
yeah.
I don't want to be in a silo of Jews that are all the same. What's the point? I
Yeah.
enjoy, maybe because my mom was like this and my dad, the different grandparents, that the sweets in the Ashkenazi house are not like the sweets in the Sephardi house. I
Yeah.
wrote a children's book about the Sephardi Tu Bishvat, the little bag with the fruit,
Mhm.
the frutas that we got when we were little. And maybe I'll show you. Some of my children's books were translated into English by PJ Library, but this one I'm not sure that was translated
I
yet. About
actually received,
Sephardi
I think I
children.
received that book from them actually. I get
It's
well,
called Sakit Shel Ga'agua, something of longing, about the little
yeah, yeah,
frutas
yeah, yeah.
bag of
I
Tu
think I
B'Shvat.
recall that book. That's so interesting. I didn't even put it together that it's
That's
you.
so cool.
That is
Did
cool.
you get it when you were little kids? A little bag with a date and a carob
In
and
school,
Yeah, I
they
do
would give
remember
us like
this.
carobs and fruits. Yeah, for sure.
because my grandfather would travel with two buses from Cholon to bring me the little plastic bag. And I remember as a child that I thought that must be very important to him to
Wow.
travel in two buses to give me one carob, one date, and one mishmish. Like what? And how generations pass on, even without so many words and not scholarly discussions, what is really important to them, to their grandchildren.
Beautiful.
It's very wise words.
Mhm.
So we want to get into your book a little bit. I have it right here.
Mhm.
Ruth Calderon, A Bride for One Night, a
You
book.
know why I love the cover?
Right.
Look at the picture.
So
I
you
didn't.
have here a girl that seems that she's okay, so just for the audience, because you're going to talk about it.
It's an American photographer from the 50s, Ruth. He'll tell me what's her name, what's her last name. It was very expensive to get her picture, so I wanted it very much. It's called An American Woman in Rome or in Italy, the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And you see a young woman walking in Italy with sandals, and she's kind of strong, but there are only men in the street on Vespas and, you know,
Nachon? Yep.
saying things to her and I felt that first of all I thought it's a beautiful picture, but I felt that being a woman studying Talmud when I started studying was like going in a street with all men. You are trying to keep your balance. I also call it barefoot reading, and she's with sandals there, and staying on your track and enjoying the company as opposed to being scared of them.
I'll
So
tell you something though. Recently we've had an explosion of incredible women that have written incredible things. We just recently interviewed Gila Fine, Yael Ziegler. I don't know if you've heard of her. Yael Ziegler. So many more that don't come off the top of my head, but really the contribution of women to both Tanakh and Talmud has been incredible
it's
recently.
a real revolution. I mean, I saw the classes where there was no woman in the room. There was Professor Vered Noam, she was before me, and she was my teacher and friend. But then there were no women. And today, like in every other profession,
Yeah.
when they come in, they know
And
how to work.
and
Like
having a
even
female perspective of things is important. You're getting a very there's a lot that men don't think about or not concentrating on specifically, but a woman does have a certain how do I say it? Like they have certain
Sensibility.
A different perspective.
perspectives
Yeah.
which really contribute, not just from the intellectual standpoint, of course, that doesn't make a difference, man or woman, right? So there's an intellectual contribution, but specifically also from being a woman, like Gila Fine, what she did, and whoever listened to the podcast, which we hope you read her book because it's mashu lo ragil. What she did, it you have to have a woman that's really looking at that. You know what I mean? It's very difficult
It's a
if not.
perspective that only a woman can really dig into.
Exactly. So
You
it's
know, I wrote an article in the 80s. I was 20 something, and I called it Achen Chatzi Ha'am. It's a take on Bialik, and I said only half the people read the book, and Torah was given to 100% of us, not only to half. And the Torah I wrote then is waiting for the woman's perspective of reading. I mean, and I think during the last 30 years, I'm seeing it. It's really amazing. And
beautiful. There's
And
so
you're a
many.
big part of that movement, I think.
Yeah,
To give you credit for that.
we're gonna talk about the Knesset speech, which we'll talk about later, which was revolutionary in its own right. But now regarding your book. So in the introduction to your book, A Bride for One Night, you express that you are not reading the Talmud religiously, academically, or even educationally, but rather as texts that have the ability to move us, namely as literature. This was also the catalyst for your plea in your legendary Knesset address, which we'll speak about later, that the Talmud should be a part of the Israeli curriculum and culture, regardless of religious ideology, as these texts have something to say to the modern Israeli. Indeed, whether you view Agadah as sacred or not, the author's desire to move us is an unquestioned truth. Can you elaborate on your methodology and those who inspired it?
wow, it's like a question of tell me about your life. But yes, I was amazed when I met the Talmud. I was 20 something, very young, just out of the army. And for the first time at Oranim College with Menachem Hirschman, Mark Hirschman, he was our teacher, and he made us learn by heart the Rashi, Tosfot, and Gemara of the chapter we studied. And I was just amazed that this text exists, and I didn't know that it's so incredible. And what really moved me most was the literary depth, the language, the humor, it's sometimes wild, it's kind of radical. And like, who knew that this is what the rabbis are studying in the yeshivot all the time? They don't look like radical, literary, I felt like I'm finding a treasure, and I have to bring it home to my people, to the people in the Israeli community of literature and art and music and film and so on. It's like when you read a good book and you tell your friends, you must look at this. So, but the methodology, I was a student of Professor Yona Frenkel. He was, I think, the first one at Hebrew University that studies the legends as works of art. He would say, it doesn't matter if they put it in this sugya. It's not that it doesn't matter, but I don't read it as only belonging to this sugya because it existed before it was put in. It's like poetry. You don't need to know anything before you start the story, and you don't need to know anything after. It's a work of art, and that amazed me. And then he would just read with us these small jewels of, I remember the day he taught us, Hakol Tzafui Varishut Netuna. And, you say it in Israel, it's like something that you say a million times in school. And he said, Hakol Tzafui is not that everything is predicted, but that everything is seen. There's that spit. Someone big eyes seeing everything, and still you have the right to decide what you're doing. Like simple, just good, serious readings to the bottom of the text. And I love that. I was also studying with Ari Elon, who was a student of Frankel a few years before me. And he wrote Al-Madi, it's a small, short, but not small, book of reading legends. And I studied with both of them and learned that meeting a short story in the Talmud is the beginning of a relationship. It takes a while to let it, it's like you get something very intense and you need to fill it with water in order for it to come to its right size. So as a student of Frankel, I think at the time, again, it was in the 80s, early 90s. He was very different from all the other teachers of the Talmud department. He was in the literature department because they did not learn Agadah in the Talmud department. That's Hebrew University politics. But where in all the other classes we studied, you know, where the sources are from and is there a mistake in the Yud and maybe there's another manuscript and so on, but did not touch the deep meaning of things as such. It was much more
Technical.
theology. Frankel went straight into the values and that moved me. And so I understood that we are taking all our tools from literature. I did not study in the academia literature, but that is what I love. And work with the same tools on Talmud. And it's funny to say today, it's given for you, but it was new. And so and many of the stories were not, no one wrote about them yet. For example, I was a young student, still in Oranim, and I noticed that Rabbi Akiva and his wife, the classic story of 12 years and 12 years, that he comes with 24,000 students, it reminded me of something. And I thought that it is similar to a very, very classic script play by Natan Alterman, who is our greatest poet and writer, that is called Pundak Aruchot. The Pundak Aruchot, how would you say it in English? The spirit. Pundak is like an inn. It's a classic story about a violinist that is very poor, living with his wife, and he's leaving her at night without saying anything because he wants to be a famous musician, and they're too poor. And she wakes up and she says, no, don't go in hiding. I'll give you the money and go. And he goes for 12 years. And he comes back and he hears her, someone is mocking her, and she says, if he would ask me, he can go for another 12 years. And he goes for another 12 years. And when he comes back, he's the most famous violinist in the world. But when he comes back to meet her, she already is coming from the cemetery. It's too late. And no one ever mentioned that this is the same story of Rabbi Akiva, 12 years and 12 years. And Rabbi Akiva says, if I would have, I would give you Jerusalem of gold, which goes to the famous song, Yerushalayim Shel Zahav. Alterman says, I would give you wings of gold. I wrote an academic little essay saying, this is the midrash of that. And at that time, the secular people that knew Pundak Aruchot by heart didn't know Rabbi Akiva.
They couldn't trail it back.
And the people that knew Rabbi Akiva from kindergarten never heard of Pundak Aruchot. So that connection is, I feel, where I work, to connect this treasure with these wonderful artists and people, not only religiously and not educationally. I meant, I don't want to be like a kindergarten teacher that tells you what's right and what's wrong. The text is much more cool and radical than that. It's not a text of the good kids. When Rabbi Akiva says, when there's a question on what ground can you divorce a woman, and Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai say if she cheated on you or if she burned your food, Rabbi Akiva says, even if you found someone more beautiful than her, just don't stay here out of pity. If you want to go, go. That is not educational. Oh. It's not something, not banal. They're very not banal. And I feel that unfortunately, many times when they are taught in a kind of Hamish, not as wild as they are. I think that's what I meant. And also, I'm not a rabbi. I am not telling people, giving advice what to do. I'm appreciating a beautiful piece of art together with others. And so I'm trying to understand the young woman that wrote it. It's not me anymore.
It's a what are your thoughts about the fact that as far as 2000 years ago, these sages had the abilities and specifically the methods of such rich literary texts, the way they presented. What does that tell you about them from your perspective? איך את רואה את זה?
They're a big mystery to me because we don't exactly know who they are. Most of their Gedot are not signed. There's like a hypothesis
Hypothesis.
that they might be in the 5th century and maybe they're in Babylon, but who are they exactly? And I imagine some kind of a literary circle, like what is it called in New York? Like a kind of a circle of people that had a language together. In my PhD, I tried to claim that if you see the hundreds of short stories or miniature stories, they share language in the sense of wherever you will find a cave, there would be a few dozens caves in the stories. In most of them, someone will go through a transformation. It's like a topo. And everywhere the matronita, the Roman matron, will appear, she's always the same character. And what happens to the rabbi with her is usually something vis-a-vis body, sexuality, sin. When they meet the poor man, it would always be meeting chaos, meeting the other, meeting fear, sometimes the angel of death. They would be the homeowner meeting the other. When they meet a baby. So I think that they created not only these beautiful stories, these deep, profound stories, but a kind of a network of aggadic language and also landscape, as I wrote there in the book, that it's like a map, it's like a world, a little universe where all the stories happen between the bathhouse, the Bet Midrash, and the Bet Din, the field, the house, the second story of the house, the roof. It's only there. You can film the whole series in a little, scenery, and that's very modern. It's very ancient, but it's very modern artistically. Usually in every scene, there'll be only two characters, a rabbi and someone. The someone, like in Greek tragedies, could be a group of someones, but it's always two. And many other things. So
Very interesting.
I'm thinking about them a lot, although someone will one
So what
day
you're basically so you're saying that you can track an internal logic and internal sort of language and world that it's almost like they created their own little internal mental map that they used for to channel through their values and ideas, and but they did it within a sort of like an internal language, like you're saying.
Yes, like a whole world. Maybe I don't know what it could be similar to, but that the people that knew the stories, the audience, didn't only know this rabbi and the Roman matron from this story. They remember it's like a series. The beautiful and the brave. You already know them. And in the seventh season, you don't have to introduce them again. If someone will come, we know that Koves, the person that washes the clothes that smells bad, is the lowest rank of professions.
Mhm.
So it's a series, like today maybe
Mm.
when we see on television and so there's something about this group. It's not just personal stories. It's an amazing creation.
Yeah, they're going off of like known cultural motifs that people are familiar with, and they're constantly reusing those as like the backdrop, right, of the story. So
In their special way. So a cave
yeah.
is not anymore just a cave. The Israeli cave in the Palestinian Talmud would be a cave with bats and flies and smell. The Babylonian cave is a magical cave. It's a Walt Disney cave with the nisim, that the carob
Beautiful.
tree grows and the miracles and the water comes and it's like a sabbatical in I don't know what would be your dream land that you with your son and you it's so the cave comes out of what it really is in their history and in their time and it becomes the Talmudic cave and yeah.
It's very interesting because you bring up the cave, but I was just thinking about, always comes to my mind when I read like the story of Rabbi Shimon going into the cave. There's something similar that connects it to Plato's cave, the story, famous
It
Plato's
is.
cave. And, because in Plato's cave, for those who don't know, I might be butchering it, but the idea is that there are people who are facing a wall in the cave, and there's light behind them, and they're seeing these sh people who are walking behind them. They're casting shadows on the wall, and
They're
uh,
all tied in their hands.
they're
They
all
can't
tied.
come
Yeah,
out.
they can't come out. And then one person escapes. And then when he escapes, he sees, oh my God, there's a world out here that's unbelievable. And he comes back to tell them that, oh, you guys are missing out. There's really like there's an amazing world out there that you don't even know. These are all just images. These are just imagination. This is not the real thing. These are projections. And they like laughed him off. And like, you don't understand. You don't know reality. We know what we see. We know this. This is our life. And it's reminds me of almost like kind of like the rabbis were playing in a way. I don't know if they were. I know they were exposed to Hellenism and so on, but they when they came out when Rabbi Shimon comes out of the cave, he also thinks he perceives reality a certain way that is not correct, and then he has to go back into the cave to contemplate, and then come back and then understand the reality for what it really is. And I
Right.
always found that the cave motif is kind of building off of the Greek explanation of it. I don't know if that
Yeah.
resonates with you.
I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe that they looked up to the Greek philosophy and myth and they absorbed it like we know what's happening in the world today, but then they take it in and they make something new of it.
Yeah.
What
They
happened
make it their
to
own. They make it their own.
their own. And what happens to Shimon Bar Yochai is that he goes in to the cave, a rebel and a zealot, and he says about the Romans, whatever they tiknu, they did for their own good, and he's against them. After 12 years and another year that God puts him there to think, he comes out and he says, can I letaken? Can I do something? And that transformation and becoming an adult and taking responsibility is something very interesting of people change in the cave. They like a butterfly, they become something the next stage of them. It's interesting when we as Talmud Agada readers, when we all know the stories, we can start talking not only about a specific story, but about the topos, the symbol that is like, for example, the cave. So I'm still waiting to have enough colleagues to talk about that. You know, nobody reads your PhD, so maybe one day.
So, in your introductory chapter, The Imaginative Map, you discuss the literary landscape used by our sages in telling over aggadic stories. You mentioned that modern academics have always been, quote unquote, embarrassed by the unconventional depictions of time, space, and reality in these stories. What is your understanding of the imaginary map of the sages and the consequential error of modern academics in understanding it?
Still talking about academics 30 years ago, 20 years ago. And I think today there's so many colleagues that have joined us, but I felt at the time, and back many years before me, in the beginning of Wissenschaft, the Studentums, they were embarrassed with Agadah as something childish. Maybe it's folklore, it's not serious, and only halacha is legal work that they used to say it doesn't have, en beze basar, it doesn't have meat on it. It's just Agadah, fluffy women stuff. And today I think people realize that it's all literature. Halacha is also literature. And Agadah is so well made, so deep and profound and precise. And today it deserves and it's getting its academic attention. And many more scholars from different fields came to know it and to study it. So it's not only, Talmud is not only legal. It is. There are legal, many legal discussions, but I wouldn't say that it's more than a half. That's a big question. The En Yaakov, or, different people will count differently, but there's no question, I think, that maybe the smaller half of Agadah, and not just let's jump beyond it and go to the next halachic chapter.
Yeah, it's treated more like a science today. Like there's so much to unpack, and before it was kind of overlooked, not really so focused on, and totally. I think in many
It was
circles,
like
it
the
still
pictures
is.
in a picture book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Agadah
mean,
was like pictures.
what I love about the academic world today, with regards to these agadot, is that I find that the focus on it, it's actually unique because you don't always experience that. Depending on the yeshiva you go to, usually you kind of just like brush off, or you kind of run through the agadot. You're not really analyzing them so much all the time, depending on the yeshiva, obviously. So it's really like a breath of fresh air. Like we were discussing off camera, Professor Jeffrey Rubenstein, who, like, I feel that should be like yeshiva curriculum. People must learn that before to really appreciate Agadah, and his contribution is so it's so refreshing. And our rabbi is the one who got us into him, Rabbi Joshua Maruf. We have to give him credit for that. And it just opened up a whole world for us. We just
Really did.
because we studied Gemara since we were like in what, fifth grade, sixth grade,
Yeah.
and we
I
never
envy
never even
you.
considered this. But we never
No, no,
considered.
no. We learned it in a very, it was not, it was,
Yes, but I envy that too.
I didn't find you. Okay.
But we all the world of studying Gemara is studying in a Lithuanian way,
Yes.
Yeah.
which is a kind of a way that they decided back there that we will study law and Hefza and Gavra, which is a fine way to study. But all the part of the Talmud that doesn't pack into that. They just kind of let go. And Jeffrey Rubenstein is doing an amazing job in doing it academically. So nobody can say a word. It's not only, he is not only literary, he's very scientifically showing and proving it. And so,
Yeah,
and
it's
time,
undeniable when you start to see, if you in his book Talmudic Stories, he'll start charting for you and showing you how these stories have chiasms and parallelisms to other, and it's once you like, it's undeniable when you see it. And I don't think that that needs to take away from the religious message for people who are religious that might get intimidated by such things. I say the opposite. I think that it actually enriches the religious aspect if you so choose that way. It shows you that these were very, very structured, pointed, specific. There's something to unpack here. And the sages, they were, at least for in their minds, they're giving a religious message. There's no reason why a religious person can't should get intimidated or think that the fact that agadot are have a literary structure, it somehow devalues it. I think it increases the value. It's just a matter of learning how to reframe and shape your lens in a different way, and then you actually it becomes even more enriching than you'd ever imagine. So chaval,
So interesting that you mentioned that. I mean, I felt it, but we never actually said it. I think that I wouldn't say religious because religiosity is something that is not
of course,
divided between halachic and non-halachic people, but traditional religious, you know what I mean,
Nahon.
people maybe we're intimidated by the freedom of literature. It's not summed into halacha, but for me, that is religious text because they move your deepest heart to
Absolutely.
appreciate this world and what is expected from you as a human being and what it is to be a Jew and what it is to be human and what does God want from us.
Yeah.
And those
Absolutely.
thoughts are
The
religious
word
thoughts.
religious that I used was the wrong wording. It wasn't, I didn't mean to, that's the wrong wording that I chose. My point was, like you
I
said, that
understood.
these are uh stories that are speaking to the depth of the human condition and to
Yeah,
the depth of the Jewish consciousness.
Yeah.
נכון.
And
And
That's what
I always respect fear. When people are intimidated, I try to understand what is frightening here, and usually they have a point.
yeah.
But in this case, I think it's funny to say that it's time to study the whole Gemara and
Mhm.
not only the few traditional chapters that yeshivot do.
Yeah, and actually you mentioned that it's very creative, which is different than a lot of the other fields of study within Judaism, where everything is kind of like black and white, and not black and white in a sense where there's no depth, but like there's
clarity
it's
is.
clarity and it's systematized,
Yeah.
right? Everything
Yeah.
is systematized, so you progress in your understanding as you learn it more and more, right? But for example, midrash, when you learn midrash as a kid, you never really develop that skill of honing and understanding and unpacking a midrash. You're really learning it when you're 6 years old, the same way you're learning it when you're 26 years old. But for some reason, Agadah and Midrash stays in that place, and every other field, like Gemara and everything else you study, you're constantly developing and evolving and deepening your understanding. And it's a shame because, like you said, it's we understand that there's, people have these fears for a good reason. When there's something too creative, if you don't understand how to work with it, you might go too far.
Might go, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's what you meant when you said you don't look at it, you don't teach it educationally, meaning you don't want it to be something that, this is kacha v'kacha and that's
yeah.
it. It's supposed to open something up. That's the idea of an artistic expression, right? It's supposed to create something versus just, sitting in a classroom and A, B, C, D, E, F, G and good night.
I agree. And also, as you said, a lot of the Wissenschaft, the study of Jewish studies of the 19th century was objective. You learn something and then you divide it to 3 levels and 4 answers. And here you go through, something happens to you. It's not something that you're objective about. The story touches you and I feel changes me, wakes me up. Like in the Knesset, I wanted to say something to the ultra-Orthodox and to the secular, and the story was so relevant that sometimes when the right story comes in the right time. For example, now when we went through this horrible war in the 7th of October, and we lost our conceptia, they say in Israel, something about what's happening here was kind of lost. And I felt that it's very similar to the giving of the Torah. And when Moses comes down and breaks it, and then there's a time without Torah. And there is a time of just being quiet and waiting to realize what's going to happen. And then God says to Moses, come, now you will write the Torah again. You're not going to get a Torah made by heaven. You're going to write it yourself. And I felt about Israel that we are now in a time between Torah, and we have to heal and write the Torah ourselves, even if it's not perfect and it's with this wound inside it. And many times the text is holding some deep meaning that until you don't get to the point that you need it, or for example, the aggadic piece that God is crying. I learned it so many years ago, but I was impressed by it, but I didn't know what did they feel when they wrote it? That God is crying, and the angel is saying to him, please don't cry here. I will cry and you don't cry. And God says, no, if you don't let me cry here, I'll go to my room that is called Bamistarim, and I'll cry there. And again, last year I felt that God is crying, and that there are moments to just say, that's where we are now. And if I wouldn't have that text, I would feel lost. There's something that the sages have left us, this treasure of human responses to life, that thank God we don't need all of them all the time, but when we do, I felt like coming home I go back to them like, you go to your grandparents to learn some wisdom and get some
Beautiful.
comfort.
Amazingly said. Wow. I got chills from that example that you gave. That's really beautiful. And now that you touched on your Knesset speech, we'd like you to tell our audience, first of all, what that was about and what led you to that moment.
And before you talk about it, I just want to say if anyone in the audience has not heard Ruth's Knesset speech, runs about, I believe it was about 15-20 minutes or something. It's about 15 to 20 minutes. Her Knesset speech trying to promote Talmud to the wider Israeli society. It is one of the most incredible speeches you will ever hear. Everyone should go on YouTube. Everyone needs to listen to it. It is incredible. Okay, sorry. Now.
Thank you very much. It's so moving that you heard it. It was very simple. I was only maybe a week in the Knesset, and Ofer Shelach, one of the guys that was in charge, he said, tomorrow you have to introduce yourselves. You have 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And I thought, can I be next week? And he said, no, tomorrow. So I went home and I thought, how will I introduce myself? What do I know how to do? And I said to myself, I'll read a story. And then I thought, what could be relevant for today? In the Knesset, there's all this, tension between this and that. And I thought of this beautiful story of Rabaka and His Wife. And I brought my Talmud, and then they told me, you're not allowed to hold anything when you're talking to the Knesset. So I kept it very low. And I started teaching. Now, usually not very many people listen. They do other things. So I was teaching, but the speaker of the Knesset that day was from Shas. Vaknin is his name, Chaver Knesset Vaknin. And he is a traditional Jew, so he was interested. And he heard that I'm reading the Talmud. He started talking to me. So the more secular people in the Knesset thought that he's attacking me, so they woke up. So the ultra-Orthodox in the Knesset thought that we are fighting, so they woke up. While we were really enjoying studying together. And so I really read that story about the wife and the husband that forgets to come back home for Yom Kippur. I'm afraid to ruin the beauty of the story, but there's a very deep, איך אומרים, it's not exactly something to learn, but something that the story touches on, that if you rely on someone and you stand on their shoulders, you should be very sensitive to their needs. And if they break, you will break with them. And it's so true about America and Israel, about the Middle East and us, about different groups of Jews. When you rely on someone, you have to see if you didn't push them just a little bit more than they can take. Because if they will collapse, you will collapse. And the story is so beautiful because you can see both sides as the wife and both sides as the husband. It's not just one-sided. So I didn't know it's taped, and I didn't know anyone would put it online. And then I learned what an amazing world it is.
Well, you didn't know that it was going to be
I
online.
didn't know. I was first week. I didn't know everything was taped.
Wow.
And then
Funny.
was the reaction in the audience because it's such a divided audience, oftentimes, and like I felt like you really it was just such a unique reaction. I thought it was amazing. So
The
I
reaction, and I think the connection with Vaknin, that was special because we come from two different worlds and they would expect us to be rivals. But he's a Sephardi Jew. I don't want to fight with him. I like him. And he didn't have nothing to fight with me. He was intrigued. Let's study some Talmud. You have to sit there as a speaker for 4 hours or 8 hours. I joined him afterwards to be a
So, so
speaker.
you gave that speech. The room was stunned. You could see they were stunned. It was a stunning speech, and they were stunned. What happens after? What was the did it have an effect, or did it not have an effect, or what was the events that followed?
Things don't happen very quickly.
Of course,
Things happen
so is
very
the nature
slowly,
of the
but
world. So is the
right.
nature of the world.
But I did feel that I broke the line in some ways, and I could form coalitions with not only with the people that are supposed to be on my side, because politics is very much either you're here or you're there. And some surprising people came to say Shar Koach, and it comes for granted from in the outside of politics, but inside it's very hard to break the lines. And so unknowingly, the Talmud was really a source of help here. And we managed to do some things. And I also want to say that I believe in politics, and I think good people should go and give service for a few years if they can, because if you're not at the table, you're on the table. And we always leave it to other people, and then we complain. So I
True.
was surprised how well the Talmud was accepted there. But I mean, that's what we do every day. But suddenly in that scene, everything was surprising and different. And for me, it was amazing to meet people like you that heard it. And suddenly I had connections with Jews in the world that I don't know. And that also made me feel how the language of the Talmud is such a potential connector.
Uniting factor. It could be a uniting factor.
So I'm assuming a lot of women started knocking on your door to teach us at that point, huh?
Not women, dafka.
Really? Okay. Oh
Not
wow.
women dafka.
No, it's not
Amazing.
a woman thing. It's a
Listen,
Jewish.
Great.
you have an incredible life where you're trying to bring back our ancient roots and trying to connect it with our modern times. You want our traditions to be a force of unification, not of division. You we share in your vision that one day our ancient texts will not be relegated to a specific group or specific, ideology, but that the ancient texts of Israel belong to the people of Israel regardless.
It's
And
going to be the night of Shavuot. We all were there. I remember standing there when we received the Torah. It was all of us, women and men, and there was no secular or not secular or religious then. And we should all live with it. And I feel I just met 60 young people from a Mechina program before the army. And they're great young people today. And they asked me about the project that I'm trying to work on. And I told them that our life is shorter than the moves of culture and history. And I tried to, together with my friends and my generation, to push the rock a little bit forward. And it's not moving so fast, but maybe something is changing. And I do feel that in Israel it is. And unfortunately, in this last very hard 2 years, many more people are looking for meaning, for identity, for depth.
נכון.
And so, yeah, I feel here at Alma that we have more and more people that come to study, young people and older people and everyone.
Change is always slow. That's the nature of the world. Maimonides actually says that the reason why Hashem, God, made the Jewish people wander for 40 years in the desert was because, being that they were slaves for all those years, it was not practical to take a slave-minded people and just, immediately throw them into Israel as a country and a nation and a political. They needed to have a time to readjust
Human time. Yeah.
exactly. Um, Change comes slow, but change does happen. And the explosion, as I was saying before, the explosion of incredible works of Talmud and Agadah and Midrash and all these. It is what's going on in Israel. There's like a renaissance of sort, and it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of time that it will spread into all the different places. It's and we appreciate so much your contribution to that vision, and we appreciate the time that you gave us. Kol hakavod, keep doing what you're doing and keep inspiring Israelis towards connecting with our ancient texts.
Thank you so much. It is so moving that I feel that we are connected like in a minute, because we share the love of this, and that even if things move slowly, knowing that this is our job and that we do it, and that we have partners, even ones that we didn't know until today, is a very warm feeling. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for being there,
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
joining your audience.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We appreciate it. Shavua Tov,
Shavua
and
tov.
be safe,
And happy Shavuot, and
and happy Shavuot. Chag
may
Sameach.
we be זכאים, איך אומרים, worthy of the Torah that we keep receiving.